Hi, my name's Ian. I'm an engineer. I'm a dad. I was pretty worried about lack of meaningful progress on things like transport trucks and trains and tractors and airplanes. Um, but I've been feeling a little bit better. Let me take you through the despair and the joy, all right? Um, so I mean, 8 years ago, maybe Tesla announced they would do electric transport trucks. And they're not here, right? And that's not because the engineering's that hard, right? It's just a motor and batteries. It's scale up when they're cars, right? The problem is transports actually use a lot more energy than cars, a lot more energy, so that the batteries don't scale in a way where it will work with transport trucks. Um, a battery has about 1 megajoule of energy per liter, right? One. Diesel has 36. 36 more times more energy in a little tank or battery, whatever. 36 times. So, I mean, you see a transport truck and they have big tanks on the side. They use a lot of energy, and that energy is really dense. If you took those tanks and multiplied them by 36, you'd be it would be huge. Just the sheer volume of battery you would need to do the same work. And that's why it's not here, right? And why are there not hydrogen trucks? Well, hydrogen is about 2 megajoules per liter, right? It's a gas. It's not very energy dense. A liquid, the atoms are far closer together than a gas. And so trains and trucks and planes and tractors, what are we going to do? That's 75% of the oil we use. And we use 100 million barrels a day. 100 million. So if we want to replace that with, say, ethanol, the farm space that would take up is enormous. Enormous. It's all the agriculture around the world would be needed to produce 100 million barrels a day. So I was not feeling good, right? I'm an engineer. I'm looking at this going, oh, we don't have a solution. But then I found out some people come up with a really simple solution, a solution I should have seen. So this is nitrogen, the air's 78% nitrogen, and hydrogen. Years ago, I made this. I had a chemical company client. They got the hydrogen from methane from natural gas and the nitrogen from the air. And I never thought, well, you could get the hydrogen from green power. So this is ammonia. It's very common. We use 5 million barrels a day. But today we use it for agriculture. It's a great fertilizer, um, but it burns. And it's 12 megajoules per liter. 12. You need bigger tanks, right? You need 3 times the tanks as diesel, but that's way better than 36. And the other thing about this is it's simple. You don't need a crazy complex chain of companies. You don't need any new engineering. All of this is off the shelf. You get a turbine, some electrolyzers. We know how to make hydrogen with green power. But instead of leaving it as hydrogen and trying to compress it and move around to gas, you combine it with air, and then you have ammonia. That simple. You can buy a unit that works. It comes in a shipping container. That's it, just a shipping container. It's automated. You connect it to some green power, and it just makes ammonia. Now, to do this at a massive scale, you need things like financing and contracts and insurance and maintenance. And believe it or not, that's all done. We know how to finance wind farms. No problem. No problem. Hydrogen production. No problem. Ammonia production, we've done it for more than 100 years. The distribution, there's pipelines, ships, trucks, tanks, anything you would want. The last step is the only missing step. That is using it as fuel. We've got the fuel, just need to put in an engine. Now, the combustion should be this simple. You take the ammonia, you burn it, you get air and water. That's what should happen. But I mean, everyone has burned a candle where the wick was a little bit too long. You can see the smoke. You can have a dirty burn and a clean burn. And the chemistry for dirty and clean, it's science, right? Like engineers and scientists need to figure it out. And we haven't been using ammonia as fuel. So we have some research on it. Maybe it's not perfect yet. Because I mean, a Formula One team has a couple thousand engineers. Around the world, there's 100 people working on this, maybe. But you start with ammonia, and then there's all these different steps, and it's kind of like an energy ladder. It's giving off energy as it goes down, but if it's too hot, if it's too cold, too much pressure, not enough pressure, too much oxygen, you can, instead of getting 100% nitrogen, you can get 99%. So these other things you can get, N2O, NO, NO2, it's laughing gas and NOx, they call it. They're bad. We don't want them. Here's some data from cars and trucks. All right. So the air, like I said, it's 78% nitrogen. So when you combust something, most of your tailpipe is nitrogen. But then the oxygen combines with the hydrocarbons to get about 140,000 parts per million, so about 14% carbon dioxide. Okay. Greenhouse gas. So no matter what you're burning, you kind of get that. But then, because the air, 78% nitrogen, even when you're burning gasoline or diesel, you can get that nitrogen to combine too. Right? So you can get a little bit of N2O, a little bit of NOx, but these chemicals, these gases, are really powerful greenhouse gases. They have 300 times the effect of carbon dioxide. So because diesel engines work a little different than gas engines, diesel engines tend to produce more NOx. So in theory, the greenhouse effect should be 1400, 14%, it should be the carbon dioxide. But because you get the NOx, it's 290 effectively parts per million. So that's not good, right? So if we burn ammonia, even if we just get a little bit of NOx or N2O, it's bad. It wipes out all the benefits of using a green fuel. But that's just the objective, right? Design around the problem. So if you control the air mix, the temperature, it changes the chemistry, right? So this is a graph. It shows all these bad things going up and down, but there's a spot where it's happy. You really have effectively no problem. So how do we design engines to be happy? This is another graph. It's some different research. It shows gradient lines. So, but I colored in this little green line. If you're in here, you're happy. You're green, no problem. And your engine runs like normal, kicks off the right amount of energy, right? So I'm going to take you through the 4 steps of a 4-stroke engine, right? You suck in air and in this case, you'd suck in ammonia as well. You squeeze it, and squeezing it puts heat into it. All right. You have a spark, which combusts it and starts it burning. And as it burns, it pushes the cylinder down, and then it swings back up and exhausts, right? So as we suck in, we have fuel injectors, and we can control very precisely the amount of air and fuel. Right? So we want it to be exactly this, and we can do that. The technology for that has existed for cars for quite a while. And we can also do things with the intake air temperature. For example, anything that's supercharged or turbocharged, they have intercoolers on the air that comes in. You can tweak those. You have temperatures on them, and you can decide what you want to do with them. Right? Um, you can also, as you design your cylinder itself, you can design it to retain more heat or less heat. So diesel engines, the cylinder itself is quite a bit warmer than a gasoline engine, just the walls, right? So this is all stuff. It's got to be done to a degree, but we know how to do this. When you squeeze it, right, the length of that linkage right there determines, are you going to compress it 10 to 1, which is sort of typical for gasoline, maybe 8 to 1 for gasoline, or 20 to 1 for diesel. So as you compress it, you're creating a different amount of heat. Um, and it's a choice. We know how to do it. We can experiment. In the labs have adjustable compression ratio set up so they can test all this stuff. And then the amount of spark you put in and when you put that spark in, it's going to change how it burns, the temperature it burns, the rate it burns, and the torque. If you, because it's a lever, so if you do it at a different point, it has more or less uh, rotational torque. Uh, and then finally, that timing also, you want to make sure ammonia burns slower than gasoline, um, or diesel. So if you're modifying those engines, you want to make sure that there's enough time in that combustion stroke to fully combust. But I mean, it works, and people have figured out how to keep it happy. Um, there's a big wide zone where there's enough time for it to burn, where the engines exist that do this already, that are set up like this off the shelf. You modify them, make sure the injector is big enough to flow 3 times as much, because it's 12, 36 joules per liter, megajoules per liter. Um, the first application where people are really using a lot of this, there's 12, 15 big ships out in the ocean running on green ammonia as fuel. Those ships have really huge chambers, and they lug along really slowly, um, which gives plenty of time in that combustion chamber to burn, right? So it it's not going to be an F1 car with zero emissions, but if you want a Dodge Ram with zero emissions, no problem. You want a towboat, 100% green? Sure. That's pretty good news, right? So I want to do a shout out to Seamus. Has a PhD in engines, uh, done a bunch of testing on this, and is commercializing some of this with Aza Power. Um, so yeah, I mean, you want 100% green truck, Mack truck or personal truck or whatever. The the science is done. I mean, it's not just possible. It's like it's done. So in summary, right, like 100% green inputs scales insanely fast, no problem. the bad things you can get from incomplete burns, yeah, they're bad. Yeah. But then you design your combustion around that. You make sure you have the right air fuel mix. You make sure your gas temp, by varying how stuff is fed in and the compression of it. You change your ignition timing, and you've got a green engine, right? Yay! Okay. Um, I hope this was helpful. If if you don't need the preamble at the beginning, let me know. If you already know all about how to make green ammonia and just want to know about the engine, let me know. All right. Um, anyway, it's a pleasure.